So what do we have waiting for us next? Hey, Stagecoach.
Where is the mariner?
He wanted to go to the Hall of Song, sir. Asked us to take him there while you went inside.
Well, take us there, please. I should speak with him. And hopefully catch up with an old friend, too. Really, Ricardo? One of these days you're going to have to sort these seats out.
Is something bothering you, sir?
There are papers everywhere.
Papers?
My brother does like his notes messy, sir.
Well, take it from me. You could... Hang on. Now, what's this?
What is what?
History of Medea. Summarized points.
Oh, sir, you weren't supposed to find that. Please just...
Another one. Calculus. Quite a few formulae. These are rather small for notes, aren't they?
What? Ricardo, are you...
Making a cheat sheet?
What? Oh, no, you're not to... You're not going to report me, Inspettori, are you? I failed twice already.
Depends. If you can find me a place to stay for the night that's free from the mire of politics, well, I'll consider.
Really? Oh, well, all right then, sir. Prepare to be, freed of the mire of politics, I mean.
One more thing, before you return.
Of course, sir.
If you could go back to the Cleaver and find Amadea. Red hair, tied into a braid, wearing Dieci clothes. It shouldn't be too far from the ruins. Tell her or the registry, would like to speak to her.
We'll keep an eye out, sir.
Good luck with that. Seems like it'd be a little hard to find specific people so easily. So we're now in the Hall of Songs. Shortly after the clearing of the Black Crib, the Vegelus, who were to become the songstresses of the city, decided to construct a monument to protect the tree that had been unearthed, and to provide a sanctuary of sorts for the troubled citizens of the country. Thus the Hall of Songs was constructed, and today it serves as the house of the nation's legacies, and a favorite place for uneasy souls to find solace. And where's our friend hiding out? Got mixed people around here everywhere. Such fantastical clothes for everyone to wear. Kind of highlights the usual class divide thing. Yep, there it is. There they are. There's regular people walking around, and then there's the crazies. They look insane. May the odds be forever in your favor. Hello, what have we here? Next to all the creepy masked people. The first Canticle, new. A new beginnings. The first Canticle lasted for 12 Messera, 1 through 48 IL. So that doesn't seem too long then, huh? Only less than 50 years. And ended shortly after the construction of the Prima Campa. During the first Canticle, Ombre was principally a fishing village, and most of its residents living most of his residents living close to the shoreline. There were few Fae the farther and farther they were from the ruins, but they wished to stay close enough to Sierra Verde, for it was most abundant in Mascherines. Though the people of Ombre quickly discovered the power of Mascherines, they did not understand them enough to embrace them. Salting wasn't understood, and there were many casualties and mines lost to the Mascherines. This created great apprehension that surrounded the Mascherines, as well as respect for those willing to bear the burden of using them. Tales of the exiles who had somehow managed to survive the Dark Beyond trickled back to Altamire, and after time enough of dealing with the oppressive and suffocating ways of the country, many Altamirians decided to emigrate to Ombre, sustaining the new nation's population. Soon enough, the fishing village had grown too full, and unwilling to push further into the cavern under the mountain and face the dangerous beast that lay within, the people decided that they needed to establish another settlement that would provide them with more than simply fish. Prima Campa, the first of what was to be known as the Randagia, was founded at the end of the first Canticle, was founded, and the end of the first canticle was called for. Defaulted to wanting to say that it was founded at the end of the first canticle, but it was founded and the canticle was named after it. Is this the second one? Sure is. Second canticle, Fertile Fields. The second canticle lasted 18 Messera. That's significantly longer. About 70 years. I assume that IL is years. I'm pretty sure it is. And is considered by some to be the most peaceful of the canticles. Life during the second canticle was simple and revolved mostly around agriculture and feeding one's family. There were no wars with other nations and little strife within the country itself. The Randagia continued to expand as the city remained stagnant, and the relationship between the two was warm. They were, after all, part of the same country and believed that the other deserved as much as they did. The Portieri were established in order to protect the citizens, both of the Randagia and the city, from Fae. The first two media, Medanza and Mirabusto, were founded after the salting of the Valencio Ataran Vamus, and training schools were set up to harness the power of the media. The nation was seeing progress, and its growth attracted the eye of its fatherland, Altamire. Tales of the successes of Ombre did not stay within the silent stones that bordered the country. Word of its flourishing spread rampantly through the streets of Altamire, leading to a great many to question the will of their priests. For so long, they'd been told that what lay in the dark beyond was a wasteland. There was no life there, and there could be no life there. Yet, there the Ombrians were, not only surviving but thriving. Though the Altamire theocracy decried the healthy nation of Ombre, their words failed to settle the doubting hearts of their people, and the chief priests knew that action had to be taken. One of the more popular chief priests of Altamire, Barovian Govailin, was sent to Ombre under the guise of disillusionment. He proclaimed the greatness of Ombre, and convinced the Ombrians that he'd seen the truth. The Altamirians were wrong. The Orane religion was a sham, and one day he assassinated the Varun Ramus del Zol. In response, the Ombrians executed Barovian, giving Altamire the window it was looking for. The rest of the priests in Altamire told their people that the heretics had murdered Barovian, and, hiding under the flag of revenge, declared war upon Ombre. Thus, the March of Broken Songs began, and the second canticle was declared over. That's pretty rough. So you've got insane religious heretics. Insane religious fanatics have their own private society, and they oust anyone who dares question the idea that the area outside of a certain range could possibly be livable. And then when the people that you kick out survive out there and thrive, then you declare war on them just for existing, just for surviving, just for having their own society independent of yours, because it contradicts rules that you arbitrarily came up with for some reason. Not exactly the most heroic and relatable society that we're dealing with here. Songstresses. The songstresses of Ombre are the keepers of the city's soul, in charge of singing and storing the legacies of the Masquerada. The songstresses are the most venerated of all the city, and are respected by all the colors of the Masquerada. On some level, I gotta kind of wonder, I wonder about this history we're being given, just because it's so perfectly evil that I wonder if it's true. Because a lot of the time when you have such a perfect villain for your society, it's a fabricated villain in many cases, and if it's built on lies, that's why it's so perfect as an enemy. It's so perfectly crafted. The singing tree was unearthed during the clearing of a set of ruins known as the Black Crib. Its branches were the first parts the adventurers saw that hinted at its presence, and which prompted further excavation. When the tree was fully unearthed, what surprised the Vegelus the most wasn't the sheer size of the tree, though that was indeed impressive, but rather the fact that it was still alive. How long it had been there, no one can say for sure, but for the tree to have reached the size that it has, the Vegelus suspected it could perhaps have been around since the time of the Dimenticate, in the half-century or so since it has been uncovered, the answers to the questions of its longevity still remain shrouded in mystery. So this is a giant subterranean tree. Was it getting light? I'm intentionally ignoring the objective to try to see what stuff I can find on the map, as per usual. But that seems to be as far as we're allowed to go. So this absolutely massive tree was underground. So you gotta wonder if it was getting light or if it was being powered by something else entirely. Because the other resources were probably there, but there's a reason why they tend to be on the surface.
Thank you, sisters. Orana, will you please take the chime and place it where it belongs?
Mirabass?
Cicero?
It's been a while.
Oh, Cicero, it is you. Come here. I never thought. Why have you returned?
Business, I'm afraid. I cannot speak too much of it.
I understand. But here? Have you come to listen to some songs?
No. A friend of mine should be here. A mariner.
I believe I heard some of my songstresses speaking of one. He should be somewhere atop the singing tree.
I'll find him. Thank you, Mirabass.
Hello. Someone we're familiar with. But it defaulted me to this entry instead, so I guess we're starting with this one. Vapers and the chimes. During the excavation of the Black Crib, the discovery of the artifact, the artifacts that were to be called the chimes and vocifers were unremarkable at first. The mechanical boxes that were the vocifers weren't simply misunderstood, they were considered aesthetically displeasing, having strange lines etched into the material that jarred when set against curves that were so common in non-brick art forms. Eventually, however, when enough research had been conducted into the artifacts, and the vegetalists realized the chimes, when placed inside a vocifer, could hold and reproduce the songs that were sung into them, they changed Ombre. For the longest time, songs had meant so much to Ombrians. They were the epitome of what made them different from the Altamirians, a central aspect of their identities, and when they realized that their songs could be preserved forever, the chimes were bestowed with a status so sacred, it was almost as though they were revered. It was as if the Ombrians had developed a religion of their own in their attempt to stay far away from the fanatic piousness of the Altamirians. Though the legacy system has no gods or pantheon, it is still taken incredibly seriously by Ombrians. So they almost accidentally started researching a different group on their own with these chimes. It's concerning how much of Ombrian society is built upon relics that they just kind of found from previous societies and have no idea how to produce, presumably. I mean, if vocifers and chimes are so revered, that immediately suggests that they don't know how to make them themselves. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a big deal. You don't revere a CD player because you just make more of them if one of them breaks. Instead they're relics that are just discovered, and that's concerning because that means that they can be lost. Mirabass. There are a few people in this world that my heart leaps at the thought of meeting, but Mirabass is one of them. She and I have a long history together, a history that began the night she saved my life. I suppose that seems to be a theme in these tales, people saving my life here and there. But I suppose in a city of death and shadows, one doesn't spend 3.5 decades living in the streets without brushing death. To simply refer to her as the blind leader of the songstresses is to do her a disservice. She is more than capable of, despite her blindness, and more than kind, despite her place among the Masquerada. But to think that due to her possession of magnanimity, I'm terrible at that word apparently, she is incapable of darker things. Oh, but to think that due to her possession of that she's incapable of darker things is also foolish. Those who harbor such sentiments have yet to truly be welcomed to Ombre. Power in the city, no matter its form, is never won with clean blades or, in her case, untainted voice. Mirabass's history is long and not without complications. She wasn't always blind, and she wasn't always a songstress. She doesn't often indulge in the telling of the two tales, and most in the city are too preoccupied with themselves to bother inquiring. But there are others in the city who have nothing but time on their hands, have been tempted enough by curiosity to ask. When I'd first posed the questions to her about how she lost her sight and how she'd risen to her current position, I hadn't expected both questions to be answered in a single tale, much less braced myself for the Odyssean narrative that she'd unleashed upon me. It is a story far too long to recount in these pages, but suffice to say, it contains great loves, great losses of all kinds, and convoluted dramatic weave that their intertwining has created the convoluted dramatic weave that their entwining has created has never failed to astonish me. I believe even the greatest storytellers of the region have to spend night after sleepless night in search of so tragic yet hopeful a muse as a seed to fabricate such a story. Perhaps one of these days, when all of this blows over, I shall encourage her to pen a book of it. I've thought of encouraging her to compose her soul song with its details, but I daren't let such a macabre suggestion leave my tongue. I am not superstitious, but I know better than to tempt fate. Interesting. So we don't actually know much about her. All we know about her is that our character knows a lot about her, and that he admires and looks up to, or is at least happy to encounter her, but she is not innocent. But we don't know the context for it, other than that some of that loss of innocence may be related to how she lost her sight in the first place. Songs and legacies. When the first left Altamire and established Ombre, the first thing he did to distance his people from their past was to embrace what the Altamirian culture had considered heathen, the arts. In the ascetic Orana religion that Altamire followed, the arts and outward displays of emotion were considered pathways to corruption. The human soul was intrinsically foul, and connecting with and expressing base desires and urges was only going to poison the minds of people. When the nation was founded, however, there were no artisans of any sort, and so the simplest and perhaps most universal of the arts was used as the base of this patronage of the arts, the art of songs. The culture of Ombre has taken the fascination with songs to great extents. The thing closest to a religion that's to be found in the city is our belief in legacies. Every family of the Masquerada has a legacy, songs stored in the chimes that are hung upon the branches of the singing tree. The chimes of every family's legacy hang upon the same branch and allow the Masquerada to listen to the stories of his ancestors, reminding him of his familial duties and reinforcing the importance of the deeds he commits in this life. To the Masquerada, who had once been Contadani, the concept of legacy is less meaningful. They have no branch in the singing tree and no legacy to preserve. I will admit, however, that the idea that you continue to live on after your death, even if only in song, has an appeal to it. So we have been really heavy on stories so far, and on codex entries, but I will point out that some of these places, such as culture, are actually already half full. So I think some of these things are front-loaded, which makes sense. You explain the story and location and stuff like that to try to help people understand what's going on in the game and around them. But over time, it would inevitably become more of a character-driven narrative and less about the intricacies of the society itself, which usually needs to be front-loaded.
I'm sorry.
A strange choice of greeting.
That mask runner. If I hadn't done what I did, maybe she wouldn't have died.
She wouldn't have been the first mask runner you've killed.
It's not about me. If she was still alive, maybe she could tell us where my brother is. Or where to find the artifacts.
You heard.
And learning how to create Mascherines again is huge, I know. But somehow, compared to finding my brother, I say that I'm scared for him. But in the end, it is I that undermines our progress to find him. Razatov is that much further away now.
5 years ago, I was put on an investigation that led me to discover that my brother had been siphoning Mascherines out of the Hall of Bearings. I didn't join him in the endeavor, obviously, but I let him go. When the registry found out, and word spread, the consensus at the time was that I had to be punished. Death by hanging was the easiest option, to remind the others what awaited them should they ever place their hearts above their duty. It was your brother that sacrificed much of his clout to negotiate the terms of my punishment. He managed to reduce it from a death sentence to one of exile. Your brother saved my life, Calden.
I didn't know that.
We'll get him back, Calden. On your Mariner's moon. I'll promise that.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. Now Calden has a pretty strong reason to trust me. It's not just that I was friends with his brother. His brother literally saved my life, and I owe him a great debt. That's a much more powerful example than you'd get otherwise. I'm a little surprised he didn't say it earlier.
Tides.
Who is that?
Calden!
Please, Orana.
Every marshal that I've spoken to says that you knew him well.
Calden, who is this?
Inspectore, my name is Orana Corvale, songstress of the Hall of Songs and sister of Jaxus Corvale.
Orlana, do not involve the Inspectore, please.
I had once tried asking the registry for assistance, but they turned me aside. Perhaps you will be kinder.
Orlana, you must move on.
How? My brother is dead, and I know not why or how, and the only lead I have refuses to answer my questions.
There is nothing to answer.
And so I approach an Inspectore, who certainly could do a better job than I.
Cicero, we have no time for this.
Let the Inspectore...
Jaxus is gone, and no amount of investigating is going to bring him back to the shores of life. He would want you to move on.
But please...
Orlana.
Calden.
A shadow of my past. We should go.
You gotta wonder, there's a few potential reasons why she might not want to investigate that. Like, on one hand, maybe he's trying to hide something because he's maybe involved in what happened and he's guilty. Or maybe he's just so dedicated to finding his brother that he doesn't want this to distract us. Or maybe it's just publicly known exactly what happens and she's not been able to deal with the grief, and this is something that their group of people have just kind of grown to accept, is just try to sidestep this conversation that keeps coming up. I guess we'll find out over time. Orana Corvale. Many in the city tend to think of the songstresses as insular and isolated from the world of the rest of the Masquerada, and sometimes reminders that they have histories that involve other members of society come as a surprise. Such is the case with Orana Corvale. She is not a songstress that I am familiar with, but evidently she shares something of a history with Calden that involved her brother, Jaxus Corvale. I am concerned, to say the least. I hope this does not affect our investigation, but being as familiar with the movement of events as in the city, I haven't got a very optimistic prognosis. Whoops. Is this going to be the next Canticle? The third Canticle. And this is probably going to be the fourth Canticle over here. They spaced them out a little bit, but walking down the next doorway of the same building led to us finding the next one. So not that much. They're not spaced out that much, ultimately. Alright, the third Canticle, Broken Songs. So now we can find out the juicy part of what happens in this war when the religious nuts all come charging in, if we can trust any of this history. The third Canticle might be the shortest of the Canticles, having lasted only 4 Messera, which is 14 years? 15 years. Yeah. Isn't a Messera 4 years, I think? Yeah. But might well be considered the most impactful of them all. It was during the March of Broken Songs that the Ombrians discovered their true potential. Forced to defend themselves against the Almaterians, who, with their massive army, outnumbered the Ombrians 12 to 1, the people of Ombre used the Mascherines in ways they'd never before considered. To kill in masses. Once the Ombrians began to accept the devastating power of the Mascherines, the tides began to turn, and during a major skirmish at Mirabass Valley, a group of Ombrians sacrificed themselves to collapse the mountain pass, sealing off the only passable route between Ombre and Altamire, effectively ending the March of Broken Songs and signaling the end of the third Canticle. So that's when things got bad. It was this nice artful society, and so the fishing society, and the peaceful. They're peaceful. They had these magical masks that gave them powers, which just helped them all the more to thrive. And then someone attacked them, and they learned how to use them as weapons, which apparently has not been a recurring thing yet. And I'm sure that the society was not improved by that. The fourth Canticle, Whispered Words. The fourth Canticle lasted for 12 Misura, which is about 50 years, and was the period during which countries from across the Midnight Belt began noticing Ombre. Tales of powerful Masquerines spread through the lands and enticed curious foreigners who, though not yet in droves, came to the shores of Ombre to personally ascertain what the truth of the matter was. Needless to say, all who came were sufficiently awed, and returned to their homelands to spread the word. Immigrants began coming to Ombre, and guilds were established. The Altus Nobilis was founded in 145 IL, while the Luca Infinita was born around 150 IL. The Theralds arrived in Ombre's shores at this time as well, though no records could be found of when exactly this happened. The sign that the Vegelus determined ended the Canticle was the auction in which Saiho Therald's painting of his family's crest, emerald serpents crossed against a black sea, sold for a record-breaking number of crescents, and established the arts as a proper source of revenue. Finally, the great artists that Ombre had dreamed of since its inception had arrived, and the Canticle was brought to an end. Interesting, so it's a 50-year Canticle so it's an era of their history that is specifically defined as ending the moment that word of Ombre led to their economy booming. Basically, their great art that they valued so much became an actual source of income, and that recontextualized everything. It'll be interesting to see if those keep becoming new entries. We got 4 Canticles just now, and there's like 8? If I remember correctly, there's 8 Canticles. Let's double check that real quick. Third, yeah. This is just... Don't remember if they said... I think they said 8 at some point, so I'd be unsurprised if the next 2 were the 4... maybe I'll come back to this location one more time, and when I walk in, there'll be 2 more Canticles, then when I walk out, there'll be 2 more Canticles. It'll be interesting to see if it's laid out that way. Well, we got our exit. Let's get out of here.
What is this about?
No greetings, even?
Stop wasting my time.
All right. I want you to be a part of this investigation.
What?
You have expertise that my team is lacking.
This is not a good idea.
I can pay you 1,000 crescents.
You don't have that kind of money.
I will once I finish my job, with your help. Amadea, what is stopping you? Mascherines, the blood of the city. This is our chance to find out where they came from. For centuries, the histories of the land have been enigmatic. For the first time, that curtain is being lifted.
Fine.
Really?
Do you want me to back out now?
No. This is good. Thank you.
Now, where are we going?
Toth, found us a place yet?
Yes, we did.
We think you'd be most pleased with it, sir.
Well, let's hope you're right. So, what fruits have your search yielded?
It's a place called the Estiguary, sir.
Is it crowded?
Not at all, sir. In fact, the place is practically barren, save the people who own it.
The owner said the war's done a toll, but he's more than willing to house us for the night. For as long as we want, in fact.
Generous. How much is he asking?
He said it depends on who we bring back.
Of course he did. I wouldn't put my trust in anyone who didn't hold a bargain.
I'm glad you think so, sir. We're just arriving.